All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency Board Meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, and the time is now 6:01 p.m. Before we proceed, just a quick reminder, board members, please wait to be recognized by the chair and not interrupt any speakers. Public comments must be directed to the board as a whole and not to any individual on the dais or in the audience. Any forms of insults, personal attacks are strictly prohibited, and disruptive behaviors from the audience are likewise strictly prohibited. We're going to have our invocation this evening by Board Member Hay, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Board Member Turkin. Let's all stand for the invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. We gather here today, Lord, to make decisions for our community. May we use our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and the pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for the city of Boynton Beach and its fellow citizens. Bless now the members of this commission, of this CRA board. Guide us with that which you will have us to do and to make the best decisions for all who is involved. For it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Let every heart say amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Cherry, if you could please begin the roll call.
Ty Penserga, Board Chair.
Here.
Angela Cruz, Vice Chair. Woodrow Hay, Board Member.
Here.
Thomas Turkin, Board Member.
Present.
Amy Kelly, Board Member.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to move on now to agenda approval, additions, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. There are none from myself. Let's begin with Board Member Kelly, and we'll go around the dais.
Chair, I just had one. I don't know if this is where I would do it or not. I'm talking about 13E, and I'm wanting to maybe table that item with Board Member Cruz not being here. And part of that agenda item states that we're supposed to meet with the executive director and go over our reviews. And I would like to have a little bit more time. I have not had an opportunity to meet with her. So I'm requesting that we maybe table that.
All right, understood. Board Member Kelly, I would recommend you make that motion when we arrive at that point.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else besides that item?
No.
Board Member Turkin.
I would like to table 13B.
13B. Okay, I would request that you make that motion to table when we get to 13B.
And then also, I don't know if we need to add this onto the agenda for discussion to direct CRA staff to amend the CRA plan to be compliant with the LDR with the city and really have a conversation maybe about the CRA plan. Because I understand that it's supposed to change every 5 years. We're a new board. And so maybe having that conversation.
I'm comfortable with adding that onto a future agenda item so staff can come back and be prepared to discuss.
Perfect.
This is about the CRA plan and potentially amending that CRA plan. Okay. Anything else, Board Member Turkin?
Nope. Thank you.
All right. There are none for myself. Board Member Hay.
There's none for me.
All right. Sounds good. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move.
We have a motion and a second from Board Member Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. The agenda is amended. Motion passes. Moving on to legal, discussion and consideration of Stephen Grant's request for informed consent from the Boynton Beach CRA to represent various entities and pending matters before the CRA. I'm going to ask if our council could begin that discussion.
Certainly. Good evening, board. Catherine Rossmell, Lewis Longman and Walker.
So this item is a little bit complicated. So I want to just take some time to walk you through what it is that we're looking at and the status of everything. As you all are well aware, Mr. Stephen Grant was the former mayor and former board chair for this body. And since that time, he is a practicing attorney and he has represented several clients in matters. He's not before the CRA in various capacities. And so there are a number of ethical rules and Florida bar rules that govern how that sort of representation may and may not occur. And I think the waters are a little, I don't want to say they're muddy, but I think there's been a little bit of confusion about which rules apply when. And so I think it's appropriate for this board to discuss and give your staff and legal counsel some direction on how the board would like to proceed. So Mr. Grant has initially, again, he was in various capacities representing a number of his clients before the CRA, just in a sort of discussion capacity. I understand he also appeared here before you all last meeting, but then did not end up speaking to his, perhaps in the way that he intended. And he has sent letters requesting informed consent of the CRA to practice before them, and then withdrawing that request for informed consent. So I need to explain what that means. There's a Florida bar rule that prohibits essentially a former public officer from acting as an attorney before the board they used to hold a seat on, unless that board gives informed consent, meaning the board has all of the facts that are relevant to decide whether that representation is appropriate or not. And if the board is able at that point to decide if they would like that representation is appropriate and they consent to it and they give their informed consent. Or a board may look at that information, decide it's not appropriate for that attorney to undertake that representation and decline to give informed consent. Now, this only happens for matters where that attorney, who was formerly a public officer, had some relationship to the matter that's before the board. So things that were not before this board in any capacity when Mr. Grant was the board chair would not be affected by this. He's able to do that. So that's the Florida bar rule. Separate and apart from that, there's a Florida statute on ethics that prohibits representation before the board that he used to sit on, except that there are ethical opinions out there that state that so long as he's not physically appearing before the board, he may act as part of a team and assist a client as long as he does not appear on behalf of that client before the board. So there are really sort of two separate matters here. Mr. Grant has withdrawn his request from informed consent. So he's not actually asked the board for that at this time. However, he has stated in that letter that it is his intent to continue, or at least implied in those letters, that is potentially his intent to continue to represent those clients in the background in their matters that are before the CRA. Under the state ethical rule, that's probably okay. Under the Florida bar ethical rule, it's a little more complicated, but after looking into it, we believe that he would still need your informed consent if the board were inclined to give it, to undertake a practice even in the background. So that is what I want to discuss with you all.
Ms. Rosmel, I'm a little bit confused. My understanding is he asked for informed consent and then rescinded that request.
He did rescind that request. When he rescinded that request, the letter stated and sort of implied that it is his belief that he is able to continue to work with that client so long as he does not appear before this board.
And that's allowed by the board rules.
That is allowed by,
or the bar rules, I should say.
That is permitted by the state ethics rules. It is not clearly permitted under the bar rules. Under the bar rules, it is not specifically stated what the term representation means. However, the bar rule is very clear that for example, another attorney in his firm could appear before you all, but he would to be entirely screened from the matter, which is a legal concept that that is used to avoid conflict. And so by implication, what that means is he is not allowed to be part of teams that are doing work before this board unless you all give informed consent. So we would like some direction as to whether you would like to, for your legal counsel and staff to notify him that he either does have your consent to request informed consent, or that he does, that you all do not consent to him working in the background on that representation. So it's okay under the state law. It's probably not okay under the Florida bar rules. I don't want to give a legal opinion to him, but that's, in looking at it,
if this board is not comfortable with that representation, that is an opinion that we can express to him.
Thank you. I'm going to hear from my colleagues. Board Member Hay.
Yes, I guess my first question is,
Microphone.
do we have legal rights on the local level? In other words, can we add to what the state is saying? In other words,
There are
If-
no as far as I'm aware, there are no CRA rules that directly play into this question. And we were looking at it from the perspective of the Florida bar rules and the state statute.
see, here's my concern. Sometimes we have to protect ourselves from ourselves. We don't know what connections are being made and decisions are being made for future gain. And I'm not so sure we have that situation here. Knowing that he's an attorney, and God bless him, and he needs to make a living, but some of the decisions that were made could have been a setup for his future representation to gain monetary, value. So I guess what I'm saying is, can we modify our position, saying that we can put if someone in that capacity, they cannot represent a case that has come before us within the prescribed amount of time, whether that be 6 months, a year, whatever. Can we look in that direction? You know,
So I would like to look into that. It is my belief at this moment that you are allowed to create additional ethical rules for practice before boards. I've not seen that applied in special districts, and so I'd like to look in that and get back to you. However, if it is your concern that you wish to express that that is not a practice you would like to see, you in this particular case may rely on the Florida bar rules to do so. When the former government official is not an attorney, that may not be available. And I can come back to you with an answer next month as to whether there's a policy that we could put in place to address that. But in this particular case, if you have a concern, it is covered by the Florida bar rules.
well, for myself, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I definitely want legal to look into this and see what our options are.
For
to-
creating a separate policy.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. And to bring it back to us for discussion. That's where I am.
Board Member Hay, you make a very good point. Board Member Turkin.
Board Member Hay, I agree with you 100%. I think there is a concern here. And it's not just at face value, but the optics of this and that public trust. I would not be okay with giving consent on this because of some of the things that you have mentioned, Board Member Hay. So that is where I stand on this. But I would like to see what else we can do to even tighten up. I guess would it be an ethics regulation?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I have seen policies for cities and municipalities and counties that limit the type of appearance that a former official can make before them for a certain amount of time. I've not seen that apply in a special district concept. That doesn't mean that it doesn't. I just don't know the answer for that. So I will let you know, but I have seen that those exist in general in local government law.
Awesome. That was my next question. Was does that apply to the CRA? Because I know it's a whole different beast.
Yeah, we are a different beast and without home rule powers. And I will let you know next month.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yep. Besides that, I have nothing else on this.
Thank you. Board Member Kelly.
I agree with my colleagues. I think that being on these boards puts us at an advantage to knowing information that the normal public, everyday public wouldn't know. And I think that if the time was a little bit separated, if we're talking about a year or 2 years or something, then I could maybe consider it. But seeing as how it's so fresh, and I know that even some of the people that he has stated that he represents, there's active projects and things that are going on in the CRA and in the city. And so I'm not comfortable giving consent for that as well. I mean, I do agree with board member Hay that it would be nice to see if we can create something so that it's very clear when we have a situation like this, if we do in the future, just because I don't know that it's ever come up. So it would be nice to have it kind of clear so that there's no question as to how the board feels about this position.
Council, I believe we have a consensus from the board, which is one, it is a denial on the request for informed consent, and two, for you to research and bring back additional policy ideas and how we can strengthen and tie in controls.
Understood.
All right.
Just to clarify, there is no active request for informed consent. However, just given the communication that we have, my office will be in contact and will appropriately communicate the direction of the board.
All right. Before we proceed, I do have one final question for you. One of the things that was brought up in the previous meeting was this idea of an opinion from the ethics board. Have we heard anything about that?
So we, it is my understanding that he reached out for a specific opinion. It is, I do not believe that we received a copy of any opinion that he may have received. There is an existing opinion that is out there that was given to someone else that explains that under the state statute, representation does mean appearance before a board, but participation on the team can be permitted in certain circumstances. And so I think there is some reference in communication to that existing opinion, but I have not seen a specific opinion on this particular topic.
All right. Before we proceed, any final comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you, Council. We're going to proceed now to informational items and disclosures by board members and CRA staff. Let's begin with Board Member Hay.
I don't have any disclosures for tonight's discussion.
Board Member Kelly.
I have no disclosures.
Board Member Turkin.
I have no disclosures. I did go to the night market. It was a great turnout. So I want to give kudos to the CRA staff for making that happen. I mean, we had people from Delray, West Palm Beach coming there. So that was huge. So be proud of yourself. It was a great job.
Couldn't echo that more. As for myself, 13A, I did speak with Mr. Barton, 12C, Ms. Kim Kelly, and 12G, Mr. Weiner. And that concludes my disclosures. We're now going to move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. As always, public comments are directed to the board as a whole, not to any individual. You have 3 minutes. You may approach the podium. We do have 2 podiums, so please form a line so I know that you're interested. For those that are listening online and would like to speak, make sure you keep your digital hands raised throughout the duration of in-person public comments. At the conclusion of in-person public comments, that'll be the end of the digital hand raising. Okay, I see Ms. Oyer is here. Ms. Oyer, let me switch the timer and begin when you're ready.
Great, thank you very much. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I want to once again remind everyone of the survey that CRA did that said the #1 goal of or desire by businesses is beautification, and I'm still not seeing any changes. I mean, I know my nonprofit will be donating a bunch of trees to be planted on West Woolbright, west of the fire station. I'm working with Rebecca on that now. But what is the CRA doing to beautify the CRA district? And that goes from, you know, what, Gulfstream all the way north. So, you know, like it can't all be in one neighborhood. Why aren't we seeing beautification across the CRA district? Whether it's holiday lighting, and we are what, 4 months out. So I'm once again reminding you of the numerous times I've suggested that we do holiday lighting on each of the major streets and do specific signage for those specific streets, just like when you go, for example, to London or Paris, and every major street has its own theme of decorations. And we used to decorate what's now MLK, and we used to decorate Ocean Avenue. Why aren't we doing that anymore? It was like that when I was a kid. It was gorgeous. I'm sure Commissioner Hay remembers all the beautiful lights up and down MLK and Ocean. Why aren't we doing that? And while I'm all for focusing on Ocean Avenue, it is our downtown. Why are we not doing all the major streets? Why aren't we doing Seacrest and Woolbright and 23rd and Gateway and MLK and Boynton Beach Boulevard and even Old Boynton Road? Why aren't we showing pride across our city? And obviously this doesn't apply to just CRA, but it's city as well. But we should really be looking at this. And it's definitely the right time, because last year you guys waited around till the end and then you were scrambling for decorations and had almost nothing. So now's the time to be thinking about this, and you should get LEDs, even if it's as simple as one strand of lights going up all the poles, you know, the fancy little sign poles, or making special signage for each neighborhood, or doing some kind of theme like I've suggested repeatedly. It would go a long way in beautifying our city and showing that we're cohesive, we love each other, we want to work together, be together, we are one city. So I'm once again pushing for that, because that was the #1 desire by our businesses, and it was in the top 10 by our residents. And maybe if you don't believe me, go back and look at the poll. I'm sure Twee has a hold of it, or, you know, put a new one out. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other in-person public speakers? I see another one.
As I rise, I'm just rising for a point of clarification. I want to speak about the MLK project. Is it still appropriate time now? Or
Yes.
do I wait for item 4?
I will
Now?
reset your time. It is an appropriate
All
time.
right. All right, thank you. So thank you. My name is Monica Roundtree-Cleckley. I'm a board certified family nurse practitioner, and I'm here today to speak on the MLK project. I was notified about the project with this nice little flyer that says about a commercial opportunity for small businesses. And I was super excited because I'm already in Boynton. I'm on Boynton Beach Boulevard in a small space. And I was super ecstatic at the opportunity to go into the new space. Problem. I had difficulties reaching, I guess, our developer in regards to the project. But once I did get in touch with the developer, I had questions. How much is going to be for square foot? Is there going to be any CAM fees? You know, what was the expectation going into this particular property? And then when I finally did have the opportunity to meet with the builder, the conversation off was just about the lease. It was never explained to me, I guess, about any other processes. It just was, which space do you want? This is how much it is for a square foot. And I said, well, are there any CAM fees? And she's like, oh, yes, there are CAM fees. And I'm like, well, I was asking because I need to budget and make sure it makes sense. And that's all the discussion I had. After I signed a lease with only that information, I was then advised of all these other items that I would have to be responsible for. I have to pay for an architect. I have to pay for my floors. I have to pay for my ceiling. I have to pay for plumbing, and just the floors and the ceiling alone, the gentleman quoted me will be over $60,000. And I'm like, this is not, I'm confused, because when I went to learn about the project, I thought that it was a potential for a small business to go into a space to open up in the city of Boynton Beach. I'm from here. My mom's house is like not even 5 minutes away on 10th Avenue, but there is no way me as a small business could afford moving into this building, even with the CRA's $25,000 grant, and even with the rental assistance. There is no way that this project is meant for a small business trying to get started. There's just no way. And when I talked to the builder, I'm like, it doesn't say it in my lease. And then now they did away with the lease and changed it. And now they want to do a new lease, which I would not sign until I found out for sure what's going on. But as a small business owner trying to expand and to put my roots in the city of Boynton with the healthcare center, we could not do it with what's currently in the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Monica, I will reach out to you, and I'm going to encourage our executive director to do the same, to have that conversation. And just FYI, I do see the developer in the audience, Ms. Rowe. All right, so I hope you get some clarity soon. Go ahead, sir, when you are ready.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Dr. Christopher Glinton, 194 Orange Drive, Boynton Beach, and I am one of the partners and also the development for the Heart of Boynton Beach. We are Couture's Place, which is a family served restaurant to serve traditional Southern Comfort and Caribbean dishes, and we're absolutely excited about this project. Just like Monica just stated, we were very much not clear about some of the beginning pieces of the project. We also signed a lease, and then yet to find that we're going into a gray space and not a warm space. So this is the cost itself is very prohibitive in nature. With the permitting, the architectural fees alone, we've already spent almost $30,000 just on the architectural plans. And we haven't even looked at the floors and the ceilings and everything that must go along with that, plus building out to the restaurant space. So by the time we finish with the equipment in the kitchen and the licensing, we're up to $130,000 in just new appliances within the building, and we have not even designed a restaurant yet. So when we're looking at the prohibitiveness of the floors, the ceiling, the restroom, the electrical, the plumbing, it becomes very difficult for small business owners to move into the space to get started. And yet we still are having to have some capital and working capital for the 15 to 20 jobs that we look to plan to put into that space. So we're asking the CRA to really look and see how you can assist the business owners in getting the space to be a warm vanilla space so that we can take it from there to build out the rest of that space so that we can open our doors on some ancestral land. The Colbrooks and the Roker family is families that we're deeply connected to, whose homes sat on this property. And we're excited about returning back to that location to provide this for our community. So really deeply ask that you take a look and work with our developer to build this out to a space that we would be able to take from that point to provide this service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in the chambers? This is last call.
Hi, Ernest McNally, 710 Northeast 7th Street, condo 407, Boynton Beach, Florida, of which I purchased October of 2020. I can't say enough that because of CRA, because of the city government, because of the city departments, we're all in fear that we're going to lose our building like Surfside. The thing is horribly built. The HOA president is a doctor in town, very friendly with the CRA, and his father built the two buildings. And every time we try and make complaints about problems with fires or bad elevators or the building sinking or flooding, it's in District 2 and Mr. Hay blocks everything. We also worked on a thing called 132 12th Avenue. It's been designated a chronic nuisance. There's so much crime there that it's frightening. And that's to the credit of District 2 Commissioner and CRA board, hey. And then we come into the court and we find out that the courts, the magistrates, we find out that the county attorney, we find out that the commissioners, Weinroth, Bernard, we find out that the guy running for governor, Christ, we find out that there's a long list here. There's judge running now that's got all the city's endorsements, the firemen, the police, and everything. Isn't it interesting? She went to law school and grade school and high school with Arenberg. And they're all from where I come from, Brooklyn Law School, Pace Law School, Manhattan, Stuyvesant School, where all the problems are. And now it turns out we see that all the developers and all the lawyers and all the boards and everything all are such dedicated political people that it's frightening. They're all over the county, all over the state, raising money, holding hands, hugging and kissing. Look, it's not personal. What someone does in public office is not personal. And then we go through other things like applications to run for office. You see, the governor of Florida just opened up a election fraud division for a good reason, because this county will not investigate because of Arenberg after he got thrown off the Weinstein case. And now he's on his second case where he's being investigated for get fakely married because he's an LGBTQ, but he gets married for the election. And then he gets divorced after. So that's the pattern. So look, we need help, but somebody's got to help us because this is all expensive, what I'm going through. And we need help, like filing with the state attorney and about elections and stuff here in these boards. But you're using our tax dollars and our HOA.
Thank you. Your time has expired. All right, that was the last call for in-person public comments. I'm sorry, did you want to come up to the podium? Now this is the real last call. Come on up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Please begin when you're ready.
Okay. My name is Sylvia Gillian. I'm not a resident of Boynton, I'm a resident of Delray Beach, but I am also one of those small businesses bringing my business to Boynton Beach. I'm not gonna go into all the things that was already said because they already said it. So I'm piggybacking off everyone else, Dr. Monica and the young man that was here. Once we realize what the business was, the whole plans and things were going to be put together. Me personally, I'm already out of $9,000 with architecture fees and just even the down payment for the building. I'm here to request and ask if the CRA will consider giving us more assistance to build out our businesses, because it is a lot. It's a lot of money to start and it's supposed to be a redevelopment area. The amount of money, if we go out and get loans, who's to say this business is going to, the business going to like make a profit? You have to understand, you are in a redevelopment area. It's not like we're going to get most of the business from all walks of life. I doubt that seriously that will happen. So I'm here to just ask if you guys the CRA will consider assisting us with more with a build out, something, even if it's just the ceiling, the floors, the walls, the plumbing, the basics. That's my request for you guys today. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mani, now we're going to go to online public comment speakers. How many people do we have with their digital hands raised?
Chair, we actually have one person with their hand raised. It's okay. We have one person with their hand raised, David Cat.
All right, Mr. Katz, please unmute Mr. Katz, and you may begin when you're ready. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. David Katz, 67 Midwood Lane, Boynton Beach. Though the item is already over, I wanted to speak to the issue with Mr. Grant. I can appreciate Board Member Hay and Board Member Turkin wanting to get, maybe a tighter rein on that kind of situation. But would be my suggestion not to, I'm not going to say waste, but that's the word I'm going to use, waste staff's time in doing that, or the attorney's time. And all you need to do is fall back on the state statute, which is in your backup. It prohibits Mr. Grant or any one of you, once you leave office, to lobby the elective, the body that they served on for 2 years. It's quite simple. And if anybody in the future comes up, do not give them the informed consent. Do not do anything. Just fall back on that and say, sorry, see you in 2 years. That would be my suggestion, and which would cover you in any way, shape, or form. So I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. And Ms. Kerfman, just to confirm, that's the only hand up?
Correct. There were no other hands.
All right, seeing none, no others, public comments are now closed. We're going to move on to the CRA Advisory Board, and they do have a pending assignment and an update from the Advisory Board. Ms. Schutt?
Yes, good evening, Chair and board members. Twee Schutt for the record. The CRAB board has met, the CRA Advisory Board has met last Thursday, August the 4th, and they recommend approval of the draft for the fiscal year budget 2022-2023 as presented and as moved forward by the CRA board. They did also looked at the assignment for business promotions as well as other eligible events, activities as permitted by the CRA, and they're diligently looking at that, and they'll be coming back and meeting hopefully next month. It also is contingent on whether or not you want them to look at the second round of the fiscal year draft budget. But they also were, they weren't given a timeline to complete their project or their assignment, so it's your discretion to give them a certain time to work on that. We did advise them that if they're looking for any budget allocation, it should be, again, going along with either the budget amendment or next April when we do the budgeting process again. That's all I have.
Thank you. I would recommend that we give the Advisory Board at least 2 months worth of research time. They only meet once a month. But that's only my recommendation. I'd like to hear from my colleagues. I see some head nods, but Board Member Kelly.
Yes, I agree. I think that those meetings are quick and they're once a month. And I think that it doesn't hurt anything to give them the time that they need to, because I know that sometimes they'll talk about something and they want to go look and do their own sort of picking around or their own off-site research, and then they come back and they talk about it. So I'm okay with giving them more time.
So that will set us back to, again, for the reporting back November.
Okay. Any other comments from my colleagues?
I concur.
Okay, Board Member Hay?
Good, I'm good.
All right, 2
2
months.
months.
2 months it is. Thank you. We're now moving on to consent agenda. Are there any items from consent agenda that my colleagues would like to pull? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and we have a second from Board Member Hay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. We're now moving on to old business, beginning with consideration and discussion of fiscal year 22-23 project fund budget. Ms. Shutt, will that be you or Ms. Hill?
That would be a combination, but Ms. Hill could probably lead the conversation. And then if we can bring up the live sheet for the project budget.
Good evening, Board Chair, Board members. Vicki Hill, CRA Finance Director.
Excuse me, Ms. Hill, could you bring the microphone closer or is it not on?
It's on.
It's on. Okay,
And
great.
just a moment, you have a printout as well
Yes.
at your seat.
Please proceed.
Okay. We went through the first page last month, so we're back to the project fund worksheet again. And I did add in a line for the future grocery store. And if you look down, we have $190,000, 199.04 left to reallocate.
Ms. Hill,
Now-
can I ask you to
Yes, sir.
pause 1 moment?
Sure.
I had just looked at this item maybe a couple of hours ago, and the remaining balance was not 191,000. It was in the 300 to 400,000. Could you tell us what changed since then?
Let me see what changed.
Because that's the copy that was available online.
Right. What changed? We had the estimate that was rolled over. We have for the neighborhood police officers program, we did receive the bill today. So what we would roll over is 160,000 instead of, we had 300,000 there. Also for the business promotions and events assistance, the rollover changed from 175 to 150. Those were the changes.
So Vicki, the first column is really live as we're paying bills
Correct.
right now.
So that's why I'll tell you, well, I didn't change. It was the balance, the rollover, I changed it today, right before we came down. That's why you guys got a copy. I'm sorry.
All right. Please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, so we just need to know where you would like to reallocate funds. Is the ones that are in the green column, they're still the same as last month. The 410,000 is going towards for the Cherry Hill acquisition. $409,420 is going for the streetscape. The acquisition line for the post office, which is supposed to close February 2023, we have $770,000 there. We have the $250,000 for the ILE with the city, the women's club. Property acquisition, we put $1 million in there. For the neighborhood police officers program, we have $337,646 in there. The marina seawall, we have $500,000. The economic development grants, $600,000, and $375,000 is going towards 7 bays for MLK. We have exterior improvements for $500,000. We have business promotions and events. We have $291,000 going towards that. The marketing, we have $98,000. Site work and demolition, we have $125,000. Professional development service, we have $100,000. For legal services, we have $175,000, and for contingency, we have $50,000 so far, which is we have $190,904 left.
Thank you. Board Member Hay.
With that 191, 904, how could we begin to address what was brought up today about beautification in our city for the holidays?
If I'm not mistaken, Board Member Hay, we already discussed in the office the MLK and trying to beautify it for the Christmas holidays. Twee?
Yeah, so there is a project that the previous board had approved $460,000 for the lighting and streetscape. That project is underway with the city. The Ocean Avenue retrofitting of the light to match the teal colored light to match the town square, the black color light, that's underway. Gail at the city has been working really hard. Again, supplies. She needs to make sure all the supplies arrive before she can get her contractor to do that. That's the first project for Ocean Avenue east of Federal. We also have a project that's called MLK Streetscape Beautification. We have $150,000 for that. But that on top of what we were planning to do to beautify and get the street lights and planting and on-street parking, so forth, and landscape node, part of that also we had to change the scope because we realized also there's a connection from the north to the south to continue northeast 2nd Street. So we're trying to work with the city engineer and the city staff to expand that scope. So back to the holiday tree lighting, our assistant director, I think he's participating virtually. For us to put any kind of twinkle lights or any decorative lighting on FP&L's facility, their poles, they will not let you do that. One of the efforts that we are looking for example, MLK, in order to do the holiday lighting, it has, for us, we have to attach that with commercial improvement and business promotion along that street. What we'd like for it to do is we're looking also to undergrounding the power source on MLK. And then we can rent the facility, rent the poles from FP&L. The city does not want to keep, buying poles and replacing poles. They want to rent. Staff has told us they would like to rent from FP&L the lighting. That way, once you have the power source underneath, but you can have decorative lighting on there. To have decorative lighting in a streetscape that doesn't have, all the poles on both sides. There's wooden poles on the north side. So it's a really a larger cooperative infrastructure project, and we're working on that. We're also working on East Ocean Avenue from Seacrest East to go along with the beautification of Boynton Beach Boulevard. So we're doing in the works, but as far as putting things on the major thoroughfares, again, we don't own those poles. So we have to go and figure out who can let us you have to get the power source. And you can't just, the one thing that we did with the Dewey Park, it cost us $16,000 for those lighting. They're temporary and they get short circuited at every rain event. So we have to look at a way to spend money more effectively and not just strewn lights on there without the thought about maintenance. And again, getting approval from whoever owns the power source or whoever the facility that you're putting those lights on. So we are working on it, but you're not seeing it yet because there's more planning and coordination to go around.
So what I'm hearing is that we could end up with all the wiring on MLK underground.
I'd like to do that.
Would there be a wooden pole still left for the power source, or that be gone too?
That we're hoping from that perspective, the power would be underground. So you'll have
power source is underground.
Right. You'll have the decorative poles there that you can rent from FP&L. But in the wooden poles, there's other facilities. There's AT&T and there's Comcast. So there's agreements with both those three utility providers who takes their equipment off, and it will be underground. So it helps in two cases in that when you have a storm event, you don't have the electricity problem, loss of power when it's underground. So it's more of a comprehensive look at beautification than just putting up lights for a brief amount of time, taking it down. That can be done. It's just right now along the corridors, we have very small trees. We don't want to make it look unplanned. We want to make it look right. And with the construction going on right there, it's very difficult for the first couple blocks. with the Centennial construction going on.
Now, if I may, I noticed when I walked down in the Delray area, and I know we're not Delray, but they have some of these, well, do they have the wires,
It's
the wiring
turbulent.
underground?
Tim, are you there? Tim can tell you how much it costs for each of those poles, because both he and I had worked on those
And
projects.
I guess the second part of that question is, I know there are a lot of variables here. Do you have any feel for timeline as far, are we talking 2 years, 5 years, 10? Do you have any feel?
Yes, so we're hoping to bring back to the board, we're looking to see estimates from the engineer to get the design contracted through the city's engineering firms that they have the choice. And we're hoping to come back to the board with, a project for MLK, for the beautification. And then I would welcome any chance you would like for us to walk with you the street to see what we're actually talking about. Because
I would like to do that.
yeah, I think that, and any neighborhood group that if they would want to call us, we can certainly do that. But we'd like to do that, and it will take probably a year to design, hopefully, and then probably second year or third year to be looking at construction. But I don't think it's going to be that long, because there's not too many uses that are out there that we have to coordinate with.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from my colleagues on my left, Board Member Turkin or Kelly. Any questions or comments about the budget?
I do not. Although I do, well, so the 375,000 for the 7 bays on MLK are for the MLK project. What does that entail and what is that going towards?
So Bonnie also is our grant manager. But right now is for the rent assistance and also the commercial improvement for the tenant space. The CRA, our grant program allows the CRA to fund 50% or a maximum of $50,000 for food-related businesses for anyone across the CRA district. And then 25,000 or 50% of the tenant improvement for non-food related businesses. That totals all the rent assistance layered with the commercial improvement for those 7 bays. It's not going to pay for all of their tenant improvement, and usually typically that is not something our grant pays for. We did want to put that in there to at least reserve that for our tenants. We feel that they need to have that versus having a first come first serve like we've always done. At the next, actually, one of the items that you're seeing is we're also recommending that the CRA pay for the architectural and engineering fees. Again, it's a match. Our grants are usually a match. It is not to pay for everything, but it helps get the burden off the first year of starting a business in the Boynton CRA. So with that, it's agenda item 12 E. It's to allow 10,000 or 50% of the cost for architectural fees or engineering fees to get your building permit. So we're trying to help. It's the relationship between the landlord or the developer and the tenant. It's really usually up to those two parties to do. And we try to at least get the lease approved so that we can give them the grant amount that's being requested.
Okay, so just a quick question, just for clarification. So, so a restaurant has spoken to us and we've heard from them, and then a medical facility. A medical facility build out is likely a little bit more than, say, a hair salon or a nail salon. So, but do they fall under that general build out, or are they separate?
They would be a tier 2, which is the maximum grant is 25,000 or 50%. So it is only 25,000 they receive. But if you make the changes, we need to make you aware it's got to be applicable across the board for the whole grant program. If you want to allocate special money with this budget, more money for those build out, you certainly have your discretion to do so. But the grant program is usually for everybody. We can't, as staff, we can't.
Right. No, I understand. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Board Member Turkin?
So for the NOP line item, you said we received a bill. When When was that bill if the program was temporarily suspended?
It was temporarily suspended, but they work first and then we pay the bill. So we just received
So
it.
this was from, maybe the springtime or,
Yes, sir.
okay, got it.
It was through that second week, I believe in June when it was suspended.
Okay, so this is what we owe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And then the other thing, I agree with Board Member Kelly, and Board Member Hay. I would like to see some of the remaining balance go to the line item for the future grocery store in District 2. I know, Twee, you've identified some spots that we could potentially look into. And so I would like to get the ball rolling on that. That's all I have.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you. As for myself, I was disappointed before I saw this reduced number because it was already low enough. And then I'm looking at 191,000 left. Naturally, I'm disappointed, not on you, Ms. Hill, just on the situation. And thank you, Board Member Turkin and my colleagues here, because we do need to put money on the line item future grocery store in District 2. We can't talk about it and mean it with any sincerity if we're not going to put money behind it. But in addition to that, we do have another spending priority. What we've heard from the residents and small business owners here is that they're struggling to be part of this MLK project, which is transformational. It's significant. I want to make sure that we help them where we can help them. As I said earlier, I do want to sit down with them so I understand the situation a little bit better. But folks, I'm not willing to let them fail. This is too significant, too transformational. Let me gather some more information, ladies and gents, that came and spoke. But I think the method to approach this is not by modifying the grant program, because that could open a can of worms for all sorts of future requests, but for this MLK project. So that would be my recommendation. Now, specifically about that grocery store, we see here that the Cottage District, we've allocated some money for the Cottage District, but per the selection of Pulte, those funds will no longer be required. It was very clear in their submitted proposal to our RFP that they will not be requesting CRA funds. And so, my recommendation is we use some, if not all of that, and reallocate that to the grocery store line item. My only hesitation at this point is that I don't yet fully understand the details of and what amount would be required to support those businesses in the MLK project. So until such time that I know that information, I can make a better judgment of how to reallocate the remaining funds, including the Cottage District allocation. So we don't need to do that today. I'm perfectly comfortable, but we do need to put some money in both of those items.
This comes back before you on September 13th as well. So there's no rush for anything.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. And as was mentioned, the first column here is live. So are there any other expected changes that could drastically affect these numbers?
The only thing is not those, is the rollover. The rollovers will change, but not what's in green.
Right, I meant the pink column, yes, the rollovers.
They will change, they may change.
Is there anything that you know off the top of your head that it's likely to change significantly?
No, sir, not unless we need something in site work and demo. There's nothing.
All right, any final comments or questions from my colleagues? All right, Ms. Shutt.
I'm sorry, part of this is also the last 2 pages. It's your business and promotional event budget.
Yes.
You requested us to bring back, and these are, our staff has looked at these dates and have cleared that most of them will not conflict with any other county events or major events. And we would, like your approval or at least some direction on these before we bring it back for final approval. Please note that, there's some additional comments. Again, with Rock the Marina, if Pirate Fest, which unfortunately due to the timing, it's really hard to put on the full event. that may not happen if that's going to happen then, and the Rock Marina will happen if we don't have a Pirate Fest. Also, the same thing with some of the notes on there on the One Boynton and also on the Blarney Bash or Rock the Block. So those are just things I wanted to point out to you, but here are all the events that we have scheduled for next year or next fiscal year.
Ms. Schott, could you elaborate on the business development workshops? And I like the idea, but it's on the second page.
Yes.
Is
So-
this something that we're hosting ourselves? Are we contracting other people? Are we?
Yes. So in our effort to try to do more business related, not just events related, staff is looking to see what we can give to our small business in terms of bringing experts for strategic planning, build out things, information like that. We could, some of the things we can use in-house staff, but these are for businesses, experts that will come, banking industries, different experts to see how we can help the businesses have those workshops and show them strategic planning and things how to move their business forward for 4, 5, 10 years forward. That's what we're looking to get the experts to do. And, that would entail fees for consultant and spaces and anything else that we would need, and marketing pieces as well.
Like I said, I think that's wonderful. It's going to provide a great deal of value to our local businesses to support them and sustain them for years to come. Board members, any questions on this, on the events?
Nope. Thank you for making an effort to do another Rock the Marina since the last one was canceled. So I appreciate that. The other question I did have, and forgive me, Twee, if I missed this when we met, does the CRA have the ability to assist with parks within the CRA district?
Yes, in the past, most of our dollars are for brick and mortar, like Sarah Sims Park. We helped out with the cost for the construction. But again, it's whatever the commission has decided for in the master plan. So any of the parks that are in beautification dollars, we could use brick and mortar dollars for the construction. That's what we would, or even design dollars. We helped out with that for the Sarah Sims Park.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. I would like to entertain the idea to maybe budget some amount to assist with the proposed dog park in District 3 because it does fall in the CRA district. I think the idea is JC Park. I think there's a couple places, but I would like to bring that to the table.
I appreciate that, board member. My only question about that is if the CRA is going to contribute funds, which I support, how much is the city putting forward as well? Because we need to coordinate that.
Sure.
We don't want to put more than we need to, and we don't want to put less than what we need to.
Sure.
I would suggest let us work with the staff at the city and Parks and Rec, because I think in order for us to budget, we need to know how much it'll cost. And I'm sure Andrew Mack and staff will probably be working on design and things like that. We can work with them to see if there's a dollar that we need to have this fiscal year. If they can't do that, again, there's a budget adjustment mid-year. We can always, know that that's one of your priority, and we will bring it to the board for decision.
Sure. Yep. So if we could have staff work with Andrew Mack, that would be great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Board member Kelly.
Twee, can we just briefly speak about Pirate Fest? I just want to make sure that doesn't slip through the cracks. If you could kind of update us on where we are in conversations with the city as far as the likelihood of Pirate Fest happening, what maybe our options would be, what the CRA is able to do, that would be helpful.
Sure. After our last board meeting on July 12th, I met with the city manager and Andrew, his assistant city manager, to talk about the options. We gave 3 options: the full blown, which costs approximately 400 something thousand, an intermediate model, and then a very low scale back version, which resembles like the Rock the Block for the 500 block and the adjacent parking. There's money assigned to each of those. The CRA has at that time, well, now we have 150,000 left to contribute to upfront. The real issue is we made everybody aware that basically we would need to have the consultant. The previous consultant, Standard Innovation, was phenomenal. They knew the layout, they knew everything about that. We need somebody like that, whether it's the city or the CRA staff or jointly doing that, because the procurement is a big issue. We have to have 2 weeks to let out for an RFP. We can't just select that entity. And so that will be really, we're talking about the tents, the electricity, the vendors, meaning, the food vendors, they take care of that. Also the performers. We have over 150 to 200 contracts that city staff, there's only CRA staff are responsible for. So that's a phenomenal amount of work. Last year we did it, I don't know how we did it. We did it in 10 weeks, what normally would take 6 months. We planned this in June every year. So time was ticking. We don't have that entity, Stuart or whoever to help us. And it's probably not going to be feasible to do the full blown. And it's a matter of all the publication stuff is predicated on the acts you purchase, right? And so you can't really start on that. It's not just a matter of changing the dates. As much as our staff feels, because this event is like our signature event, but as much as we want to have that mindset that we can do it, it's not feasible. And really for me, in all honesty, it's not just having the event, but I want to be able to have the brand stay premier. And I want to also have the enjoyment for the people who give the show, us and the performers, as well as the people attending. And to have it done, it needs to be better thought out than just putting it together. And my suggestion, as much as I could, try to do it. It would be best, my recommendation is maybe wait till next year or do a very small event. But with the small event, you can't control how many people, it's such a popular event, you can't control how many people are going to descend in that 2 block or 3 blocks. So crowd control is a big issue, as we know, and safety is a big issue. And I'd like to make sure that everybody can enjoy it. The branding keeps in line with what we've been doing in the past, and everybody's safe. So, to me, I think I would recommend we wait, but it's really your discretion and the city commission to make the decision.
Thank you, Twee. To make you going. Do you want to talk about this, or I guess my as disappointing as it is to see that here we are talking about Pirate Fest not happening. I don't want us to fail either, and I don't want people to go, oh, that was kind of a letdown, or it wasn't what it had been before, or like you said, if it's not safe. And so I don't want it to drop off, and I would like to, even if that means we pick a date, a tentative date, we reach out to those performers that came and talked to both the CRA and the commission and make sure that they understand why we're having to skip a year. And just to be clear that, the city of Boynton Beach and the CRA want this to thrive, and we feel like this is the best thing for the event and for the city right now. I think that would be the only, thing that would, I think we just have to be clear, and we have to make sure that we have communication so that we don't lose this event to somewhere else. But so thank you for the update. Thank you for filling me in. And those are just my thoughts on that event.
Thank you.
And we will, we looked into even having it another time in the spring, but again, you have Ren Fest, which is all those vendors normally will participate in that also in the spring, and that's a longer period of time. So it's a lot of competing events as we start to reopen as a state too. So, right. But we definitely will work with the city and pick something for next year, and it'll be phenomenal as always. And that's what we'll try to do.
Board Member Turkna, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just had a question. You mentioned that you had a meeting with city staff and assistant or city manager and assistant city manager. Did y'all have any follow-up after that initial meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
we had a meeting on the 14th and our staff, I was on vacation, but our staff met with the event staff as well. And there were the same plans and deadline that was minutes that were transformed, that were transferred over to the city. Again, we couldn't pick on which option unless it was funded. So we need to have the other part of the funding, 200 or so thousand, to make up the difference that we have this year. So we were informed, I believe on last week, Friday, that the city has some money allocated to that. But again, it's the procurement process. You have 2 weeks to procure it. We had the contract extended last year till May with Stewart, the gentleman that was, the company that was doing all that, but it lapsed in May. So unless, we can hire him online now by the 15th, I don't know how the city could do it. Our procurement is the city's procurement procedure, so.
Understood. Thank you.
Board Member Hay?
Well, I hate to skip, but by the same token, I don't want to put on a half show where people are not feeling safe and all of these other things that has been already discussed. So I think it's best to skip a year and wait till we do it right. If it's worth the doing, do it right. Okay, so I'm in agreement with my colleagues on let's just skip it for right now until we can get all our ducks in a row.
All the events we do will be safe. It's next to impossible to do it in that short amount of time. So I want to reassure the public, whatever we do, we always do it to the utmost, care.
Final comments by anybody?
I just want to point out, that then our bottom line for funds remaining is going to change now. So I think we need to revisit where we want to allocate everything.
Yes.
Agreed. I'm glad it's coming back. All right, hearing nothing else, I'd like to proceed with the next item. What did I do with my agenda? All right, now the next item was previously tabled. I'd like to request for a motion to remove from the table 12B.
So move.
We have a motion to remove from the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Board Member Turkin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion passes. 12B reads update to discussion on amendment to Exhibit A, Marina Rules and Regulations of the Dockage Lease Agreement for the Boynton Harbor Marina. Would you like to take that away?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Hi, Teresa Utterback, Development Services Manager. Yes, and I also have Brian, the dock master. I believe he's online. We did our research. We checked with Lake Park Marina and Riviera Beach, and both have exactly what we have in our lease portion. It's not reiterated in the rules and regulations because the marina security of the boats is in the lease portion, which is that up online? I mean, up on the language is up there. It's in the backup of your cover. So we felt very comfortable with keeping it the way it is because both Lake Park and Riviera do the same exact thing. And it was actually good to reach out to them because I spoke to Riviera and Brian spoke to Lake Park. And just what you guys discussed last month is exactly their same concerns with you don't know how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take staff. If everybody doesn't secure their boats, you've got 3 staff people doing 19 boats. So I think maybe this can of worms that I opened. But I was good to reach out to the other marinas because I'm very confident. Legal looked at it. We're very confident with what we've got in the leases. So. But it's your decision.
It's consistent with the statute. It's consistent with our
It
partners for public marinas. And we really don't need to change the rules and regulation because we already have the language in the lease agreement. So the report back to us, to you was, we basically are comparable to our colleagues out there. And there's no need to have a cap on how much people need to pay us to tie it. And we've never had a problem because these are their livelihood. These boats the first thing that they'll do is they'll get it out and safe.
They absolutely,
safe
we've
place.
got great tenants, so.
Awesome.
Good to hear. This is a legal matter, so I'd like to just ask council if there's anything additional to add, or did that pretty much summarize the item?
No, I think Teresa covered it all.
All right, excellent. Sounds like you're recommending no action. Okay.
Sounds good to
Before
me.
we proceed, anything else from my colleagues on this?
Nope.
Hearing none, we're going to continue on. The next item is also previously tabled. We have a motion to remove from the table item 12C.
So move.
We have a motion from Board Member Hay and a second from Board Member Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. The item has been removed from table. 12C reads discussion and consideration of lease amendment between Boynton Beach CRA and Cafe Barista Inc., doing business as Hurricane Alley. Hello, good evening, Ms. Kim Kelly. Before you begin, I'd like to ask our Executive Director if you could just open up the item, give us a brief overview, then we'll hear from Ms. Kelly.
Yes, so Ms. Kelly's lease with us expires the end of this month. She is asking to have an amendment to a lease. The terms was presented by Mr. Grant, is in your backup, but we really don't have all the details. I know she expressed a concern regarding property taxes, some of the fees that needs to be considered for her business so that it can offset some burden for her. Again, we have a packet for for the board's review. Currently, Ms. Kelly is paying $7,297, and that's based on backup that our staff has met with Ms. Christiane Makoviak, the previous manager for the building. And it consists of, it's a 5-year lease. Ms. Kelly's on her 5th year. And it also includes, the final year, right? Correct? So
We'll come back, don't worry.
Yeah, and she can tell you what she needs to do. And then it also includes rental tax, sales tax, Florida and Palm Beach County tax, which is 6.5%. And then also a third, the cost of the trash, a third of that value minus the recycling. So that's where, based on Ms. Makoviak's input, that's where the $7,297 came from. That also is consistent with Mr. Grant's correspondence. Now, again, the lease agreement with the previous owner, if you turn to the next to the last page, it's highlighted. It also includes half of the annual property tax bill, which usually comes in November. And I have a feeling that's what Ms. Kelly may be concerned about as well. So originally staff had recommended 18 months total, 12 months plus a 6 months extension administrative through me to have so that there's no disruption at the same terms and condition. However, we still need to ask her exactly how much of that she is asking for reduction. There's two proposals. You either do the 18 months with no changes. We also think that if she would like to have more time to consult with another counsel or her representation, maybe a 30-day. We don't want her to be out of contract with our rent agreement, our lease agreement, or the board can also choose to look at currently everything as the terms as is, but allow her to come back when we know what the tax amount is, because we usually don't get our tax bill until October, November. So that's another option as well. But I'm here for questions if there's anything else.
All right, thank you, Ms. Shutt. I'd like to hear from Ms. Kim Kelly now.
Yes, we've been going back and forth on this for a little bit now. So basically, it's very simple. The lease stays the same. The only difference is you are now my landlord. I just want to pay the $72.97.71, nothing more, nothing less. The property taxes should be incurred by you. It's your building now. The building needs upkeep. It has decreased in value. There's a lot of things that need to be done to that building, which we all know is not going to be done. And that's just not the general maintenance and the upkeep. And I'm constantly fixing every single thing in that restaurant, from the floors to the ceilings, to the walls, to the plumbing, to the electric. I've never asked my landlords for a penny, and I haven't asked you for a penny. And I think since I am going to be displaced, 45 of my employees are going to be out of work for a little bit of a time while we do move. This is at least that we can do as a compromise. And I'm willing to still pay I'm paying premium, not premium rent, but I'm paying what everybody else is paying, which is over $22 a square foot. So I think that with everything that I've done to upkeep that building, I think this is the least that we can do as a compromise.
Ms. Kelly, if I heard you correctly, your primary concern is the increasing property tax.
Just the property tax period. I don't think that I should have to pay that going forward for the next 2 years, considering this building is going to be demolished. This is something that you guys incurred. I get it. But the thing is that there's been there's no people that are re-renting. There's no more traffic coming down there because of the people that are renting. There's no stores that are attracting people. I'm the only thing there. I've lost revenue with losing tenants because they came to eat at my restaurant. I'm losing revenue from all the customers that used to come visit all those stores and all the businesses that were upstairs. So I think this is a nice compromise. You endure the property taxes and I endure the state of the property in disarray.
So my question would be to staff, when exactly would we know that? It's hard to make any sort of agreements regarding property taxes if we don't know the exact numbers yet.
Well, it doesn't really matter about the number because it's not going to go up or down that much. It's my portion was about $6,500. That's what I paid to the Oyers. So that's all I'm asking for. And to keep the extension of the use for a year or the 18 months with another 6-month renewal. And then with, no termination until the affiliated group comes, into play. And then there will be a 30-day termination upon them, which I'm okay with, which I agreed with Jeff Burns. So basically, that's a very simple agreement, and I think we can wrap this all up tonight. There's no reason to come back and keep doing this over and over again, and this way, none of us will be out of sort from any lease, and we can get this signed, sealed, and delivered.
It sounds like our executive director and perhaps our council would like to add something as well. Either one.
We can take a look.
Okay,
I'm sorry. There is a paragraph on that we can look with your direction. At I guess next to the last sentences, it talks about the property taxes that she'll pay half. So we can, if you would like and agree that we pay all the property taxes, not the rent sales tax, but the property taxes.
The amount that I would pay includes everything, which is $72.97.71. I'll write you a check every month. I'm always on time. I'm never late. I deliver it to you in person.
So there wouldn't be any increase to the base rent.
Right. The base rent includes everything. There's no more money. That's it.
So it'll be the tabular that I put out. That will be for the next 18 months. That's what she's requesting.
Correct.
But we do have to have the 90-day.
No, we're not going to have a 90-day termination because that means you can terminate me at any time. There's no reason for a 90-day termination.
All right. One second. One person at a time. All right. Ms. Shutt, please proceed and finish.
Yeah, so that's what she's asking for, but I don't know. It's both ways, both parties. If Jeff finishes early, you can also terminate early. So it's both parties, and we can look at that as well with the attorneys. But
all right, let's hear from counsel.
I was going to say, with regard to the proposed termination clause, there's a couple of ways to consider it. I mean, I think the language proposes that the CRA cannot terminate for any reason prior to the transfer to affiliated. I would not recommend that. Sometimes landlords and tenants just need to end a relationship for a variety of reasons. If there's a middle ground in which the CRA could say that they will not terminate without cause, so that there would have to be, some sort of breach of the lease to predicate a termination, or the CRA could, generally speaking, terminate upon 90 days notice for any reason whatsoever. And then we would also need to include into whatever termination clause that we draft that it, if necessary, it can be terminated in order to effectuate the closing as may be required with affiliated. So just with regard to termination, I do not recommend that you don't allow any kind of termination prior to the end.
Thank you, counsel. Before we proceed any further, I want to hear from my colleagues. Let's begin with Board Member Kelly, if you have any questions or comments while we have the applicant on the podium on this item. All right.
I do not have any questions.
That's all right. Let's go ahead and proceed with Board Member Turkin.
I don't have any questions. I hear you, Ms. Kelly, and congratulations. I forgot what you were featured on with Hurricane Alley.
Visit Florida.
Visit Florida. So congratulations. You're bringing business to the city,
Thank
you know, and specifically the CRA district. So I hear you and I support you.
Thank you very much.
Board Member Hay?
So as I understand it, we're talking, you're saying the 72, 97, 71 is it as far as you're concerned, and then we do the taxes thing,
Yes.
and that's it in a nutshell.
And of course, just the general maintenance and upkeep of the building that you own, which,
Yeah, that's
Needs a
the
little help.
decision we have to make
Yeah.
because the building itself.
well, no, I'm
It's
just
not
talking about
gonna-
sweeping and weeding and things like that.
Yeah, well, eventually it's gonna be gone, so.
Well, eventually, but right now it's not. And people are still coming to the area. So you still want people to come to a nice area, not a trashy looking area. So that's my main concern.
Have you had, Ms. Kelly, any code enforcement violation?
Not in 26 years.
Okay. So you're doing whatever you have to do to keep it
Yes, I have.
operational?
I put my own money. I put over $1 million into that building.
Okay, that's all I have for right now.
All right, as for me, I'm comfortable with the request regarding the cost, and in terms of termination, I'm sure council can work something out with the language and
I would like that termination not to be more than 30 days. I think 90 days, and it has to be with cause or breach of contract, not without cause.
yes, I would concur with cause. So there's no capriciousness in the nature.
Okay, so I'm counting head nods to get consensus there.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
okay, so if I can recap what I believe where everyone is and everyone can sign off. Okay, so I believe that the board's direction is to draft a lease that's a 1-year lease with a 6-month administrative extension that can be signed by Ms. Shutt. That lease will allow termination for cause or as may be required for the closing, but not for no reason. And that the rent will be amended so that it's just the base rent amount, which is inclusive of rental tax, sales tax, but is not going to include the property tax bill anymore.
All
And
right.
then if when you all make a motion on this, if you are so inclined, you could make that motion such that the board chair could execute whatever legal drafts before the next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second from Board Member Hay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you and congratulations again
Thanks, I
on your
appreciate it.
feature. Yeah.
Yes, it'll be out at the end of the month on Visit Florida website.
Excellent.
Good.
Good. All right, moving on to item 12D, discussion and consideration of purchase and sale agreement for 1213 Northwest 4th Street, the Cherry Hill Mart. Executive Director, take it away.
Yes, this item, the board felt that the board needed to see the result or hear the results of the special magistrate's meeting on July 20th. They didn't have the meeting at that date and it was postponed, but there was an amended notification that's included in your board packet that basically gives the tenant the option of either go to the special magistrate or pay for the security for the convenience store from 3 p.m. till closing daily. So with this, the item is back before the board. This is the purchase and sale agreement with the property owner, not the tenant. And the agreement would allow us to buy the property at $400,000, which is above $90,000 above the appraised value, and it's without the tenant. So we do give time for the property owner, the Bells, to go through any eviction or any kind of process that's needed to remove the tenant if that's necessary. But what it does also do is start the clock for the right of first refusal. In their lease agreement, the tenant has a right of first refusal. So if we do execute this agreement, the property owners would have to go to the tenant and give him the proper notice of the certain number of days if he wants to purchase it. And if he does purchase it, then we're out. But this agreement does allow us to walk if they cannot resolve the issue with the tenant. Catherine can add.
And could
to
you
that.
just elaborate on the time by which they have to handle the tenant?
I believe that it's 10 days for the right of first refusal, and I believe the eviction process usually is 60 days. But we do, in our agreement, allow 6 months for them to resolve the issue, but we will not purchase the property with the tenant in there.
So I guess my question is, why do we allow for 6 months if the process is so much shorter than that?
It's just,
What anticipated problems are there?
it can be on or before. We could close on or before. It's just so that we don't come back to you with every, every delay that they may have through the process. Just, we can always close earlier, obviously,
Okay.
but it's just to allow them time to work through their process with the tenant.
Council, did you have anything to add to this item?
Just to clarify, that the way that it's set up, that the closing date is just automatically extended until they get a final judgment of eviction up to 6 months. And then if the seller is unable to get the property, cleared of a tenant within 6 months, then then the CRA would receive all deposits back thereunder. So Ms. is right. It could easily close earlier. The only other thing I'll add is that currently the closing date, I believe, is set for August. And so we would probably push that out a month. To September, and then it would undergo the automatic 6-month extension from there.
I appreciate that clarification because I want to make sure that if we do move forward with the acquisition, that we're not going to have a tenant long-term. We're not in the business of being landlords. Excellent. I want to hear from my colleagues. Board Member Hay, anything on this item?
Yes, I would like to know, it's up to the tenant, not the tenant, the owner to, through whatever methodology is used to get rid of the tenant.
That's correct. Under the contract, it is the seller's responsibility to deliver it free and clear of a tenant. And until they do so, we'd have no obligation to purchase and close the property.
And is there a timeline for that we're going to wait until that happens?
So no more, they'll have up to 6 months from the effective date of the contract, whenever it is that this board makes a decision to sign the contract, it'd be 6 months from that date.
What are the options after that time period? We just drop it and we are done?
So the contract would automatically terminate. Well, actually, that's not true. We would have the right to terminate the contract at that point. As with any contract, we could also issue an amendment to give more time if the CRA felt like that was appropriate. But the contract by its terms would give us the right at our sole discretion to terminate the agreement.
Do we have any indication on where the status of this removal of the tenant is?
No, we really
Okay,
don't.
I didn't
Yeah.
think so, but I thought I'd ask. Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Board Member Hay. Board Member Turkin, then Board Member Kelly.
I have no questions.
Board Member Kelly?
My question, so I know that there was an amended notice that was issued on July 28th. And I noticed in that amended notice, they gave them until August 16th to comply and make the corrections. Do we know as of today if anything has been, if they've attempted to comply, or if they are complying, or is this something that?
No, we really don't have. That was the latest we had from code staff.
Okay.
So they have to enter into that, or else they go to the statute magistrate.
Right. And that's the owner who has to comply with that, correct? Or is under her lease terms, it's the tenant? Do we know?
I think from code enforcement, I don't know if Adam's online, but I think the city deals directly with the owners.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the reason why they postponed the last meeting. Maybe to give a chance for the tenant. I don't know too much about that, other than the fact that they normally deal directly with the owners. But there are certain, I guess, there in the past month or so, or as part of the chronic nuisance review, there were incidences that happened under the same tenant as well. So that's probably been documented, but we don't know the disposition of the special magistrate. since then.
Was that it?
That was it.
Okay. All right. As for myself, I'm comfortable moving forward with this acquisition. I think it's a long time coming, and we know that we've gone through the process, and now we need to make good on that. I would like to proceed with the acquisition with the purchase and sale agreement. Board Member Hay, would you concur with that? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, yes.
All right. And I see head nods from
Great.
my colleagues, Board Member Turkin and Kelly. I'm sorry, Council, did you want to say something?
No, just in whatever motion you make to move forward. If you would also allow us to change the closing date to September, given that this was delayed before.
Okay, amending that closing date to September. Now, before we proceed with a motion and a vote, I'd like to open the floor for this item to public comment, given that this is a substantial decision. If you'd like to speak specifically on this item, please approach the podium now, beginning first with those in person, then we'll proceed with those online. All right, I see one person in the room. And again, raise your digital hands if you would like to speak if you are online. Begin when you're ready.
Hi, Ernest Mignoli, 710 Northeast 7th Street, Boynton Beach. So I follow most of these situations. I follow a lot what the CRA board does with developers, with land acquisition, with developers, with retail businesses, with restaurants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, a lot of the delis in in Boynton Beach, the areas are plagued with serious crime, shootings, violence, stabbings. There's lots of COVID infections in the area. There's now monkeypox going on, which affects people that work in delis and restaurants. It's a national plague and emergency, and yet when I come to the meetings and I hear you all make deals and everything like that, you don't bring up anything like this. And it seems like when people come up and make comments at these meetings, I don't really think they're comments under oath. Like someone like Hurricane Alley would say they haven't had a violation in 26 years. I think that's pretty odd. The building is collapsing, and you make all kinds of special deals, like you allow tenants to live in fire hazard locations, you do away with taxes. So this deli, of course, is something where you bring in the mayor and everybody's trying to come up with a deal now. You put security and then like there's all these assassinations going on. And so the CRA keeps doing their thing. Just like now you bought that hotel, I don't know what it's called, Home something. I mean, that's where the pilot for the 9/11 catastrophe lived. I mean, the public is just not aware of the history of a lot of these properties and how the CRA, sort of just makes deals and like doesn't really let the public know, like, how dangerous it is around that deli and how many police reports and how many this and that. And then you got mayor coming in and say, oh no, we resolved everything and it's safe now and all you need is a little security. It's not a little security. I would just like to finish by saying that I find it pretty horrendous that the public, and I mean lots of people are contacting me, why we're not able to get all the violence, shootings, all the problems going on versus deals that you're trying to make. For example, I just found a cartridge, a gun cartridge in the Memorial Park. And it turns out that when the Boynton Beach police came, they took the cartridge and then they just disposed of it and they didn't write a report. Now, it's a ceremonial cartridge, but we don't know if it's the one. And ceremonial cartridges at close range are deadly, and the police don't want to admit that. So I think a lot of what you're being told, the CRA, about areas being safe is not true. Thank you.
Next speaker. And if there's anybody else who would like to speak and you're in the room, please approach the podium now so I know that you're interested. Ms. Oyer, please begin.
Thank you. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great way to move this neighborhood forward. So I'm very glad to see you doing this. This should have been done years ago. As I'm sure Commissioner Hay will agree, this is a great start or a great continuation on the path to really making Heart of Boynton a true heart and not something that people are afraid of, but some place that people want to go. So I think this is a great movement forward. We weren't allowed to speak on the last issue, so I just want to throw in my 2 cents here. In case you're not aware, the Hurricane Alley building is 96 years old. It is the oldest commercial building in the city of Boynton Beach. And I hope before you knock it down, you take the time to have some kind of celebration for it. You know, it's withstood every hurricane for 96 years, and everyone can say what they want, but we never had damage until 500 Ocean was built, and the incessant pounding for 6 months, if not longer, of the foundation caused cracks in that building. So yes, Kim has endured a lot. She's put a ton of money in. She's been the best tenant, but understand that this is the oldest building and commercial building in our city, and we should be honoring and recognizing that. And we should make some effort towards a party or recognition before it goes down. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no one else at the podium, we're going to move on to online public comment speakers on this item. Ms. Kerfman, do we have anybody online?
There are no hands raised at this time.
All right, public comments for this item is now closed. Now I'll open the floor to a motion for the purchase and sale agreement of this property at 1213 Northwest 4th Street with the closing date amended to September. All right, see, I remember this time. Who made the motion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion from Board Member Kelly and a second from Board Member Trickin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. All right. I feel like that was history making. If you know the history of this, this is a significant step forward. We're going to move on to the next item, 12E, discussion and consideration of revisions to the Economic Development Grant Program guidelines and applications for FY22-23. Ms. Shutt, your microphone.
I believe Bonnie Nicklin is virtually attending, and she will cover these 2 items.
Yes, good evening, board. Bonnie Nicklin, Grant Sim Project Manager. This item is being brought before you as part of our annual review of the Economic Development Grant Programs. Just a brief recap. So we currently offer 2 grant programs as a financial incentive for new and existing businesses located within the boundaries. We provide 50% matching reimbursable funding for eligible project cost, as well as rental assistance during the first year. These grant programs continue to further the CRA's mission to activate vacant commercial space, assist businesses, create jobs, and develop a vibrant downtown. After another successful year, staff is preparing for the upcoming application cycle. The annual review provides an opportunity to review current industry standards, business trends, and to accommodate the needs of the community. With that in mind, staff has provided draft applications for the upcoming fiscal year for both the commercial rent reimbursement and the commercial property improvement grant. Staff has reviewed the current rent reimbursement grant, and we do not request any changes for the upcoming fiscal year application. Moving on to the property improvement grant, staff is requesting the board's consideration of adding design fees as an eligible expense under the upcoming application. This request is in response to conversation with small businesses going through the design and build out process for tenant improvements in commercial spaces. Businesses have shared the need for additional assistance with costs associated with the tenant improvements. Most often, businesses are required to pay the first and last month in security deposit to secure commercial space. And then they're also having to go on to, pay their design professionals, contractors, and other, license application fees. Because of these costs, businesses have requested the CRA's consideration of adding design fees as an eligible expense under the program. We've collaborated with our legal counsel, and staff proposes reimbursing 50% of the design fees associated with architectural, electrical, civil, plumbing, and mechanical improvements up to $10,000. These design fees would be for project items that are permanent to the commercial space and would stay with the space if businesses were to vacate. It would also be available to Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses and must be done by a licensed design professional. These businesses would be eligible for reimbursement once the design plans have been submitted to the city's permit department. In addition, staff recommends the following changes or clarifications. We'd like to extend the time of administrative extensions for project completion from one 60-day extension to 90-day. This is just due to the supply chain issues, labor shortages, and other delays. We've been receiving several requests and think it would be appropriate for administrative staff to extend it an additional 30 days. We'd also like to clarify that permit fees are an eligible reimbursable expense when they're included as part of a licensed contractor's quote or invoice. We'd also like to limit tier 3 businesses to commercial facade improvements and exterior security camera installations. The next one is extend the time requirement to provide proof of permit application from 90 days to 120 days. And this would allow more time for the design professionals to complete their plans before submitting to permit application. And then lastly, it's just a small clarification. We want to include that electronic payments are an acceptable form of proof of payment when they're submitting their package for reimbursement. So this overview concludes the staff recommendations, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Bonnie. Let's hear it from my colleagues if they have any questions about this. Let's begin with Board Member Hay. No questions.
My mic on.
All right. Well, I support this. I think this is going to help out those businesses, and I don't know how much this helps the businesses spoke earlier, but I did hear items regarding architectural work, and so perhaps this will provide some relief. But I still do want to sit down with them and understand that issue better. I'm in favor of this, and hearing no opposition, let's have a public comment on this item before we make that decision, since this is district-wide. All right, is there anybody who would like to speak specifically on this item? All right, we have one person. We've got two. Okay, and please begin when you're ready, Ms. Roque.
Hello, everyone. Elizabeth Roque. I'm here to just address a little bit what happened with the Heart of Boynton Village and with the leases, and maybe some of the confusion that some of the people feel that maybe they didn't understand. Our lease did have in there what the requirements were when they were taking over the space as is, with basically a grayscale on what they would be responsible for. But I think on our part, maybe we didn't quite describe probably exactly what that entailed and maybe the cost that you could possibly incur. And for that, I'm sincerely sorry. And please don't give up on us, because I'm sure that somehow, some way we will be able to make this happen. And for all of our tenants that have signed leases or are considering not signing, this is a wonderful space and it is a wonderful community, and I know that it'll be very successful and you will all be very, very happy there once you do move in. So that was just something I wanted to put out there to make sure that it was in the lease, but it might not have been explained properly to everyone prior to signing their leases. And then whatever other help we can get, obviously, to help with these tenant improvements, we would absolutely appreciate it, and we'll try to do the best we can on our side as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly, I just wanted to first say Ms. Bonnie is not here, but Bonnie, she's been absolutely amazing. Without Ms. Bonnie, I think we all probably just would have gave up and threw our hands in, but she's been absolutely amazing. I have been a benefactor of the lease, the rent reimbursement. Thank you. It has really helped my small business, because in the middle of a pandemic, we're not able to see patients like we normally do. And I would not have survived without the support of the CRA and the 6-month extension when I wasn't quite ready after the 1 year. So it was truly amazing. I'm so proud to be in my city, but I just really want to say thank you so much to Bonnie and the rest of you all, because you guys have been amazing. And you've been very supportive, and the new things that you guys are doing for everyone else to take benefit of, I think it's really amazing. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. And I know our staff and the board appreciates that sincerely.
Absolutely.
Is there anybody online, Ms. Kerfman?
No hands are raised.
All right, public comments are now closed. We'll entertain a motion now for 12E. May I have a motion to approve 12E? We have a motion from Board Member Turkin and a second from Board Member Hay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item, 12F, discussion and consideration of the commercial rent grant program, reimbursement extension guidelines and applications for 20 and 21. Ms. Shutt or
Sorry.
Ms. Ms. Bonnie? Nicklin.
Good evening again, board. This is being brought before you at your request a few months ago. Vice Chair Cruz discussed this item, so staff is bringing it before you for further discussion. This is specific to the fiscal year 2020-2021 commercial rent reimbursement grant recipients. I just want to provide a brief history on the item so that way we can answer any questions you may have. In April 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board at the time voted to modify the commercial rent reimbursement grant program from a 12-month program to an 18-month grant program, which provided an additional 6 months of rent reimbursement to any current grant recipient or any grant applications submitted before the end of that fiscal year, which was again 2019-2020. The board also expanded the 6 months extension to any previous grant recipient within the past 5 years. So this took us all the way back to fiscal year 2014. When it was time for the board's annual review of the grant programs for the upcoming 2020-21 cycle, the board discussed whether to continue the 18-month rent reimbursement program or return to the 12-month period. After some discussion, the board agreed to a 12-month rent reimbursement period with the option to apply for an additional 6 months extension at the discretion of the CRA board. So then, during fiscal year 2021, the board approved 16 rent reimbursement grants. Of those 16, 3 businesses have applied for the extension at the end of their 12-month reimbursement period and have been awarded the 6-month extension. Those 3 extensions totaled $18,453. Each business filled out a request form and provided it with supplemental supportive documents to CRA staff. We then presented it to the CRA board for final approval. This rental extension allowed businesses extra money saved on rent to invest in more marketing efforts or offsetting increase in operational costs. And again, this information was provided to staff when submitting their proof of rent reimbursement for their monthly reimbursements. Of the remaining 13 grant recipients that fiscal year, 5 recipients did not request the additional 6-month reimbursement at the end of their 12-month period. We had 2 recipients withdraw their grants prior to beginning any reimbursement at all, so those didn't take any grant funding. The remaining 6 businesses are currently eligible to request the 6-month extension at the end of their 12-month program, which is not here yet. So if each of these 6 businesses were to apply and be approved by the board, it would total approximately $44,000 in additional grant funding. This funding would come out of the economic development grant budget in place at the time of application. So if they submit the request in September, it would come out of this year's fiscal budget. If they applied in October and were approved, it would come out of next year's budget. At the August 10th meeting in 2021 last year, the CRA board approved staff's request to return to a 12-month rent reimbursement period for the current fiscal year. We did this to allow more funding. Last year was a tight budget year, so we did this to allow more funding for other critical projects and programs for the current fiscal years. So in the previous agenda item, the draft rent reimbursement program that you just approved is currently a 12-month program without any option for a 6-month extension. This is a summary of the 6-month extension. We're here to answer any questions you may have or for further direction.
If Vicki, if you want to bring up attachment 4, that lists all the grant recipients, if the board would like to look at it.
So while she does that, Executive Director, help me understand, because it sounds like this is just an update.
Yes.
You're seeking direction from the board. I mean, the extension was made because of COVID. The time has passed, and the last year we moved back to the 12 months. So,
but there's 6 remaining grant applicants that could take advantage of this because they were in that same cycle.
Okay. So you're just you're asking us if we're comfortable with the remaining being eligible for it?
Yes, to be allowed to request the additional 6 months.
All right, now that's clear. We can have a discussion. And what are we seeing on the screen here? What is this?
So the bottom, the 6 at the bottom, Bonnie, is that correct? Those are the ones that haven't asked or requested for the additional 6 months?
Correct. So of those in the yellowish color, they would be eligible to apply for additional 6 months at the end of their 12-month rent program. And again, this could happen at any time in the next year, even 2 years possibly, because, for example, Appliance King, they haven't even started the 12-month reimbursement because they're still doing a build out. So we don't know exactly when the money would come out of budget.
So the 44,000 could be one of the 44,000 that could be taken out of the grant line item that you approve in the budget. So we don't know when that may come up. So that's all we're saying. But if you don't allow any more, then whatever remaining would not be allowed to be asked for.
As for me, I'm comfortable with allowing these remaining applicants to have that option, but no others. When they applied at that time, it was under during those circumstances, and the program was presented as such. And so I want to hold firm to that commitment to them since it was made at that time, but we moved past that now. And so I would not be in favor of extending it to new individuals.
I would
Remember,
agree with
Hay?
that. What we have done for others, we should do for these 6 remaining. But moving down the road further, I would agree with you, Chair, that we should not.
All right, thank you, Board Member Hay, Board Member Turkin, and then Board Member Kelly.
I concur with you, Board Member Hay and Chair.
All right, excellent. Board Member Kelly, any questions or comments about this item?
No, just that I agree. I think that we can't control supply chain issues and things that, these tenants could be facing, and that we shouldn't take something away that was available to them when they asked for this grant. So I am all for extending it for these 6 individuals.
All right, and council, is consensus sufficient for you?
Since it is no change to the program, that is sufficient.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is 12G, discussion and consideration of a draft RFP RFQ for the CRA-owned property located at 401-411 East Boynton Beach Boulevard. Ms. Shutt, would you like to open this item?
Yes, I know our assistant director is participating virtually. Mr. Tack, Tim?
Good evening, Board. Assistant Director Tim Tack. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On June 14th, the CRA Board directed staff to draft a RFP RFQ in accordance with the letter of intent from the United States Postal Service and bring it back for CRA Board discussion. In addition to the standard requirements for the creation of a new retail post office, staff has highlighted components as well as evaluation criteria for CRA Board discussion and consideration. Those components include the possible incorporation of adjacent properties into the overall project, incorporation of a reverter clause, incorporation of first right of refusal clauses, as well as incorporation of terms for adherence and development timelines and property exchanges. Also, for the CRA Board's discussion and consideration, we've highlighted evaluation criteria of the proposers, which would include the proposers' experience in completing comparable development projects within markets similar to our project area, the proposers' financial terms, purchase price, and development and operating performance, the proposer's financial capacity to complete the proposed project, and the proposer's proposed plan or program to engage local contractors, subcontractors, laborers in the project, as well as possible apprentice programs. Also, for the CRA Board's discussion and consideration is the staff's proposed schedule for the RFP RFQ. We would anticipate or tentatively look at an issue date of September 30th, 2022, and advertise the RFP RFQ for 60 days, which would make our submittal deadline November 29th, 2022. We would look at having the proposers come to the CRA Board for presentations in January 10th, 2023, and have a draft purchase and development agreement before the board in March, and a final board approval or purchase and development agreement for approval in May. And just so that the board's aware, currently the United States Postal Service is also working on the final design documents and as well as specifications that will be included with the final RFP. They want to ensure that we have a final design document that will allow the proposers to give us the most complete proposal possible. So the items before you are for your consideration and discussion, and here if you would like to add or take away or whatever you would like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Tack. And when would this RFP, if we do proceed, when would it be brought back to the board for review?
Actually, we were hoping to get everything from the USPS and then the next board meeting, September 13th. That's as indicated. We hope that to be brought back for final approval. And then we can start looking at advertisement and getting out on the street on September 30th. And we've taken consideration also the holiday. Just to note, we did have a typo. Instead of January 10th, Tim says January 2023. But please note that that's when you have Palm Beach County Day. In the past, you have adjusted City Commission as well as this board meeting towards the beginning of January to accommodate that.
Thank you. Let's hear it from my colleagues. Board Member Hay, did you have any questions or comment regarding this item?
No, I think I would agree with moving forward with this one, and just so I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay. Board Member Kelly, and then Board Member Turkin.
I don't have any questions. I'm looking forward to seeing what the U.S. Postal Service, what their desire is as a complete RFP. So.
All right, Board Member Turkin.
I got nothing.
All right, so let's open up this item. Given that this item has district-wide significance, I'd like to open this for public comment. Please approach the podium now if you would like to speak specifically on this item. All right, seeing none, Ms. Kerfman, do we have anybody online?
No hands are raised.
All right, public comments on this item are now closed. Executive Director or Council, did you have anything final to add?
No, other than the fact that we listened to you and we only have one presentation by the proposer, and you'll have that decision made, and then the terms and conditions will be reviewed by the CRAB board once you have reviewed them. So
of the proposal.
The
terms and conditions of
the proposal,
of
the agreement. You'll select who it is, and then you'll
That's
look at
what we'll
terms,
review.
and then we'll go like we've done this previously about 2-3 years ago with Ocean Breeze as well as MLK.
Excellent. At this point, may I have a motion to proceed with publishing the RFQ as presented?
So move.
We have a motion from Board Member Hay and a second from Board Member Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. All right, that concludes that item. We're now going to move on to new business. 13A, discussion and consideration of Florida Technical Consultants LLC lease extension. Ms. Schutt?
Yes, this item is before you as in the past, FTC has been a tenant of the CRA in the Oyer building. Mr. James Barton's here. He's requesting the same terms that was given to Hurricane Alley. That really can't be done, but we are recommending a 4 months extension to his lease. His lease will not expire until October. This will give him some time to look. We feel that, again, the building, once Hurricane Alley has moved into its new location within the piers, the building needs to be taken down, the existing building, and it'll take about, how long ever it takes to do the mixed use project. So somewhere along the line, there won't be an office space for Mr. Barton to be in. So there's got to be some temporary space that he needs to make provisions for. Staff will be continuing to work with him if we see any other comparable places within the CRA so that Mr. Barton can take advantage of our grant program and rent assistance program, but he is free to choose whatever is comparable that fits his company's needs.
Thank you, Ms. Schutt. Let's hear it for Mr. Barton.
Thank you very much, James Barton from 533 East Ocean. Yes, we are looking for a new space. We know we can't stay forever, but we are hoping that we can stay at least as long as Kim is there. The building is being maintained for the restaurant. Kim's on the second floor and we're on the second floor. It would require no extra effort on your part to keep us there. There's no extra cost. It does help a local business, which is us, because of the difficult environment of moving. There was an issue with liability, and now that the Cala people are gone, there's a back door to a back exit. So if that door is unlocked, then that removes all the liability issues. We've approached Affiliated and asked them if we could extend with them once, like Kim will do, once they take over the building. And they're in agreement with that. So I've submitted that documentation. They can't really negotiate an office yet because they don't know what the final site plan will be, and they can't negotiate a lease, but they are interested in us staying there. The reasons we really like it, like we will have to find a new place, but we do like it there. It's kind of the intangibles. The team really likes the office. It's a beautiful, beautiful building inside. And that's like the fact that they like it and they're starting to return back to the office for work is a really big deal. And if we are able to extend until Affiliated takes over the building, then you don't have to see me again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barton. So I do have a question for staff. I see that your recommendation is for 4 months, but could we address the question of why can't they stay until Hurricane Alley has to go? So in other words, is there something that's precluding them from doing that?
We've pointed to the board when we purchased this, there are some structural issues. And there's also, we try not to have, there's a liability because his office does not exit directly onto the means of egress in the back. That whole building is, Kim's office has a staircase directly that goes out. Again, we are not in the commercial business. These are some things that we are learning along the way. We're having the expense of the whole building. We're paying for all the maintenance for all of that as if it was fully occupied as well. So there is a liability issue for the means of egress in the back. That's something the board will need to weigh.
All right, let's have that discussion. Let's begin with Board Member Kelly. We'll just go around. And I apologize, everybody. I feel like I need some coffee.
Uh-oh.
I need a little
wake
jolt.
me up.
We saved the toughest one for now.
Go ahead, Board Member.
I mean, I understand the situation. I understand the want to stay. And I feel like I would agree to extend it to some degree, but the building is in disrepair and we're making exceptions for one and then not for others. I'm kind of torn. So I'd like to kind of defer and hear what my other colleagues have to say on this issue, because I can see both ways. I can see how extending it a little bit would help, but then would help us on the liability end of it and getting out of one landlord-tenant agreement. But I can also see the other extending it to the same time as Hurricane Alley. So I'm kind of torn on this. So I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say on this matter first before I make a decision.
We can't extend for one tenant and not the other. That's not fair. Can I get some more elaboration on the liability?
Yeah.
So, because it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're at a difference of 2 months here? 4 months instead of 6 months is what you're proposing, Chair?
Right. Yes. The building's an old building, so none of those comply to today's code. So we are operating it as is with non-conforming items and issues. The one thing that was clear in our report when we did our feasibility or our due diligence was there were structural cracks on the east side of the building. And then also there, again, you've got occupancy up above Kim Kelly's. Kim's tenant space is on ground floor. Her small office is on the top floor, and the small office that she does her paperwork. So the means of egress for the Hurricane Alley is the same. Kayla Markin, who was there, who is a professional office, has moved out. So again, what we're looking at is the difference between the professional office that's on the second floor and Mr. Barton's. We don't have the authority to treat one different than the other. Kim actually has an agreement with Affiliated that will provide her space, and he'll work with her to move her when her new restaurant is built. Mr. Barton doesn't have that same, agreement. That agreement was brought to us by Affiliated as part of their proposal. So you're not really looking at comparing Kim's with Mr. Barton's because she has that agreement that was brought as part of his development proposal. What we are looking at is between Kayla Marketing and other commercial offices that were there who have since vacated. So that's what we're talking about, being consistent. But obviously the board can give whatever time that's needed. 2 months, we think that we could probably help. We could probably come back in 2 months, but if you want to give her more time than that, that's your discretion. We just can't do it for one and not the other when it comes to Kayla versus Mr. Barton.
Right. So with the liability, I feel like we had this conversation before with the tenant. And so, hey, we're liable now. We're going to be liable for 4 months. And then I think we decided, or 6 months, I think we decided maybe a waiver. Can we look into that to waive liability? I mean, is that something?
I think it's understood from our attorney that he's accepting the condition as is.
Okay.
So I don't think there's an additional, waiver to
Right.
admit that it's not complying with code. It is not complying. It's vested and grandfathered at the time that it was approved. So we inherited that condition.
Okay. I have no more comments.
All right, thank you, Board Member Turkin. I do have a question for Mr. Barton. You mentioned earlier that you were in discussions with Affiliated. Could you just describe that a little bit further and where you are in that process? Because from what I've heard from our executive director, that was one of the defining differences between you and Ms. Kelly. They have an agreement and you do not yet, but it sounds like you might be in the process. So if you could just elaborate on that.
So I think we submitted an email in the back of one of my emails where Jeff Burns had said that he would allow us to take over the rental of the unit whilst they're building Kim's out. And then when she leaves, I would have to leave. They can't give me any kind of agreement or sign agreement yet because they don't own it, or and they can't make any kind of lease for the new building with me because they don't know how the offices are going to lay out and things like that. I actually got an email from him today saying that as soon as they get site plan approval, they can discuss that with me. Regardless, I would have to still leave at some point, but it would be a much shorter duration. I can move just the server equipment. People can work from home for a temporary part of time. It's fine. We just love being in the CRA. We love that area. I think if it could work out with Affiliated in the long term, that would be fantastic. So, I mean, as far as the liability, there is a door to an outside egress that is locked. It's kind of like there's a door to the front of this building, and if you just unlock this door right here, then we'd have access to it. So I don't see that as there was an issue when it was occupied and the door would be locked, but now it's not occupied. It's a non-issue. And yes, I mean, there are costs to maintaining the building, but you're doing it anyway. So we're just trying to say, can we just, we're not asking for anything. We're just asking you not to do something. We're just asking you not to kind of evict us because you already have a lease in place. We're not asking for any changes to it. We're just saying sign it for another year. And, I think that we're good for the city. We bring a lot of exposure to the city. We're a very, very well-known company. And I think it's good for Boynton to have us around. And we would just like to, actually, you're more than welcome to come visit to the upstairs, especially before it gets, the building goes away. It's an absolutely gorgeous building. And we would love to show it to you. If you're interested, you can email me and make an appointment.
Okay, Board Member, did we hear from everybody?
Mr. James Barton, how long have you been there?
About 5 years.
Have you had any incidents to occur?
Like, no. It's fine. We love it. It's kind of like you have to walk through the bar to get to your office, but no, everyone's like, it's fine.
And so we're talking a difference of a couple of months here.
What's that?
I say I'm just commenting that we're talking a difference of 4 months versus.
If it wasn't for, I wouldn't have as strong as an argument, or I wouldn't feel as strongly about it if Affiliated is going to take over the building, right? All I'm asking for is to extend it until they take it over. And then I can work with them. I'll have a set time frame. I will have, the reliability of knowing when we have to move. And, right now, uncertainty is really difficult for a business. So I would just have much more certainty. We're still looking. If we find the right place, we can move. Right now, the market's very difficult for that. And we're working with the CRA to find places. But, it's just when the perfect spot shows up, we might move, or if Affiliated can say, hey, just vacate for 18 months and come back, and 18 months flies by. And, we can maybe negotiate a place. We can help them with their engineering side of things. We've talked a little bit about that, but nothing concrete. But, it's a very good vibe. It's a very good, we're a very good firm to work with. So we're very excited about the opportunity.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I can live with that. You've been a good tenant. Assuming that Affiliate will, you guys work that out.
Yes.
Okay. That when it's time for you to go, you go.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to some other engineers at a conference and we were talking about this, and they said, well, you're not going to chain yourself to the front door saying, I'm not going. But I said, no, we're not going to do that. So You have my word at this meeting that I will not chain myself to the front door. When it's time to go, we'll absolutely go. And hopefully we'll come back.
Well, that just sealed the deal, man. I vote to extend it for the extension.
Could we clarify on that, board member? Hey?
Yeah, we would really need.
Is it
appreciate
an
a date.
extension for 4 months, 6 months? Is it a year? Is it up until closing
Up until
and Affiliate takes control?
the closing, the Affiliate takes over.
That could be over a year or more. Because we don't know what their timeline is with going through the process for planning and zoning.
But it is what it is.
What does Hurricane Alley have again? Refresh me again.
Hurricane Alley Affiliate is obligated to move her into a new space according to his agreement with Hurricane Alley, with Kim Kelly. So they have 12 months with an extension of 6 months, but they will know that that's the first building they'll work on. This building here has to go down for them to have the mixed use building with the units, the 7, 8-story building they have to build. So they have to, once they move Hurricane Alley, they'll most likely negotiate if that's the case, but they have to demolish the Oyer building in order to build the new building. And the new building would take at least a year to a year and a half to do because it's a 7-story building. So that's why Mr. Barton will have to move. So if you would like to extend it, it can't be till they close in the building. It would most likely be probably a year. And I would like to have that timeline so that if we need to come back to you, we'll need to come back to you.
Okay. With that being said, then I will support going for that extension until such time as that building has to come down. And that's determined by Affiliate, right? Yes. At that point, Mr. Barton must exit.
Absolutely.
Okay. But that could be a year, you say,
Or more.
Or more.
Depending on their land use approvals.
I guess the big thing here is that's another good chunk of time to be liable for a building that's somewhat falling apart.
Which is true, but the restaurant's there anyway. It's not like I have 3 people that show up occasionally, and the restaurant downstairs is. I just don't think that there's any measurable liability that we bring.
I'm going to ask legal, and would you agree to release us from any liability?
Absolutely.
Would that be something that would protect us and we could accept this extension?
Yeah, we can.
Until
we
such
can-
time as the affiliate says you got to go.
Right. So there's a couple of board chair, if it's an appropriate time, I'll make a couple of comments here. So there are a couple of factors to look at here. So first of all, if whatever agreement we sign, we need to say it quite clearly in there that we have the ability to terminate upon a certain number of days' notice, or as necessary to effectuate the closing. I mean, our closing documents with Affiliated at the moment say that we're going to deliver it other than Hurricane Alley, free and clear. Affiliated, I spoke with their counsel. They are amenable to having tenants that go past closing so long as they give prior written approval to that amendment. And that amendment allows for 30 days termination. So any agreement that we craft tonight that would allow him to stay past any closing date, we need to have that 30-day termination language, and we'd have to have Affiliated sign off on it before we could enter into it. Let me see that from a liability perspective. Yes, we can draft a very large and extensive waiver and deliver it. They are accepting the property as is. As your lawyer, I never mind when we get extra waivers and liability protection, so we can certainly draft that up.
So we got the waiver with the liability. Would you, Mr. Barton, be agreeable to the 30-day conditions?
Sure.
30-day notice of termination, just to be clear.
Right.
30-day notice of termination for any reason or no reason.
Right.
Well, that's difficult to have 30 days. I mean, could we just keep it what it is now? Why would it be longer? I mean, we can set a time frame of if Affiliated is taken over, you know, we can be notified. I just don't want to be coming here one day and saying, oh, you know, you're terminated.
Here's the position I don't want to put the board in. I don't want to put the board in a position where we have an opportunity to close with Affiliated on a time frame that's less than 60 days, and we're not able to execute that because we have to give 60 days notice to tenant. So I want you all to be aware that that's a possibility.
Okay.
Right. So that's the reason for that.
That's fine.
It's a little bit of future predicting, but that's the harm that I foresee potentially coming.
And I appreciate you thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you help me with the language that I could draft to Affiliated that they would sign that would be approved by acceptable to you?
We'll draft. So we will draft an extension.
And they can sign it.
Well, they will not sign the extension, but we will need to seek their prior written. So we will have to get their approval to sign that if it's going to go past the closing date. If we're going to terminate it before the closing date, we don't need their approval.
So can I get help? I mean, are you going to seek that yourselves, or can I help you seek that approval?
No, we'll have to seek it ourselves. We'll have to get that approval directly from them. If we're talking about extending past closing date, which is, I'm not sure that we've reached a consensus on that yet, which is why I'm kind of talking in ifs.
What legal just said I support.
So legal said we're going to have a waiver of liability. We're also going to have the 30-day notice of termination. And if I heard you correctly, you're comfortable with an extension up until such time as Affiliated takes over in order to proceed with the demolition of the property.
Yes.
Council, did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I understand. I believe that's what Board Member Hay was saying. I'm not sure that I've seen all of you agree.
Of course. I just wanted to reiterate that first, so we're all on the same page. So I'd like to hear from Board Member Turkin and Board Member Kelly where you stand on the proposal presented before us.
Well, since Board Member Turkin is not in his chair, I will go first. I feel like I can agree on a year, but I almost wonder if we should do it in some parts because we don't know. I'm wondering if we do like 6 months with a 6-month extension, because in 6 months we'll know, or we should have a better idea as far as where Affiliated is in the process. And I feel like we would have a better idea as to when that property may be turned over. So I'm kind of where I feel like I top out at like a year. We're pretty close to that. But I'm just wondering if logistically it makes more sense to break it down a little bit just to, and we're talking about extending it. His lease isn't up until October or mid-October. So we're giving, so it's 6 months from then. So it adds on. So, I mean, that's kind of my thought process. But
You said six month with a option for 6 month extension.
right.
I like that. I think that's fair. You like that?
But wouldn't affiliate tell us that once, or will we be in a position to know?
I don't think we're looking at closing within 6 months at this moment. And so I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. Are you asking me if affiliated needs to sign off on that?
Yeah, do we have a feel for where we will be with affiliate in 6 months?
Really, under our agreement with affiliate, they have 6 months to turn in site plan approval.
Okay.
So
And we will know by then whether or not there is space for them or they're working on an agreement.
Right.
we will know how far along their land use approval
Yeah, I was going to
is.
say, we won't know the status of their negotiation with any tenants unless they elect to share that with us for some reason, which they don't have an obligation to do. We'll be able to tell if they're meeting certain project timelines, but those timelines will not relate to agreements with any tenants. And so we just can't guarantee that. We can say in 6 months, we'll be able to see if they've met some deadlines of our development agreement.
All right, so I'm the last to speak, and I would say I agree with the proposal by Board Member Kelly, which is to allow for a 6 months extension with a return of a possible extension of another 6 months. But I think if you come back here in 6 months, we'll know a little bit more of where we stand. We may not have all the information yet, but then we'll handle it then when we get there.
That would be great. I really appreciate
Okay.
it.
And just to be clear, Board Member Kelly, it is a 6 months plus a 6 months extension, but they'll come back to us first. And it is still a 30-day notice of termination. So all else being the same.
Correct.
Okay. Excellent. We have some
Are
clarity
you comfortable with everything the board just said?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll draft it up.
with the waiver.
Thank you so much.
With the waiver.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
So because I guess we'll bring that back next meeting for you all to approve, so I can just take your consensus rather than a vote here.
All right. Excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Barn.
Okay, Mr. Martin.
That concludes that item. We're now going to proceed to 13B. Board Member Turkin, I believe you wanted to make a motion on 13B.
Yes, I'd like to table this item.
All right. We have a motion to table item 13B. Is there a second to table?
Second.
We have a second from Board Member Hay. All those in favor of tabling 13B say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to 13C, consideration of registration and travel expenses to attend the International Economic Development Council Conference on September 18th through the 21st, 2022 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Executive Director?
Yes, we did enter two applications, and we won't know the results of the award, but this is just to let the board know that we could possibly get an award in some of those categories, and to see if you would like to have a representation from the board if we do get the award.
All right. Board Member Kelly, let's begin with you.
I believe that we definitely should have representation. If we've submitted for any awards, then we should plan to be in attendance at those conferences. So I would like to see that opened up to
I will be attending for staff. I know, just as a reminder, September 20th is City Commission approval of the budget. That's for your consideration as well. That's the night actually where the award ceremony would be. So, or it's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon.
Board Member Hay?
September 20th, my birthday.
Going to Oklahoma City.
Now we know who's going.
No, I would be available if the board decides. I would love to represent. Even sacrifice my birthday.
Oh, it would be a celebration.
Yeah,
Let's be
there you go.
honest.
Be a celebration. Celebration.
I would also like to attend. However, we do have that, as Ms. Shutt said, the commission budget approval meeting. That might be rescheduled. I don't know. So I'm a tentative.
Just reschedule that.
I would like to go, but we'll see. You know,
Yeah.
first priority is the commission, of course. So, what about you, Board Member Turkin? Do you have any interest in going to this conference?
I don't think I'll be able to go. I'd love to go, but those dates I don't think will work. But I definitely think we need someone representing us from the board with Ms. Shutt.
All right, excellent.
Fine.
Go
Just
ahead,
for
Board Member Kelly.
Just for clarification, I don't know that that I can attend that conference in particular, but I would like staff to attend. And I know that Twee, you and I have spoken about it, and I would love to see you know, a spot open up for an additional staff member to go if possible, because I feel like they put in the work and we get to, you know, get the praise for it. But our CRA staff really deserves, you know, the bulk of the credit for, you know, any awards that the CRA gets. And so I would open it up to Twee, if there's a staff member that could attend, that I think that would be, I would give up my spot to allow somebody from staff to go, because I think it's a worthwhile thing for staff to attend.
Thank
I would
you.
support that too.
I agree. Bring two.
Excellent.
All right, excellent. I believe that concludes that item. We're now going to move on to 13D, consideration of registration and travel expenses to attend the Florida Redevelopment Association 2022 annual conference on October 12th through 14 in Daytona Beach. This is something I highly recommend. This is something that
yes,
I thought was an excellent learning experience, and I enjoyed it very much, and also a fun time. So that never hurts.
Yes.
All right, so Ms. Shutt, would you like to open this item?
Yes, this item is our annual professional advocacy group. The Florida Redevelopment Association it's again conference season, I guess. Typically, we budget for all the board members to attend, and you know, it's really subject to your schedule. It will be done in a reimbursement base, like all of our activities, because we've tried doing the making all the reservation for you, but it gets to be too crazy because, you know, again, you may prefer to get your own car rental or, you know, however you want to do it. We do have it budgeted for 5 of you to go. Now, in the past, the board decided if you know, there is a spot that one or more of you may not choose to go, they would offer it to the CRAB board member. And I know 2 of our board members had the pleasure of going and seeing the networking that goes on, plus sharing with other board members all the redevelopment, what practices is best management practices for CRAs as well as CRA board members. So the dates are there. We thought we would let you know, and you guys could let us know how many would be attending, and you can let us know. There are some deadlines. There's a link to the FRA as well. They haven't released all their programs yet, but they'll be coming along as the date draws closer.
All right, any questions, comments? Board Member Kelly?
Just that it's I got to go, and Angela got to go last year as part of the CRAB board, and it was a learning experience, and it's a crash course in CRAs, and it was a great event. So if you haven't been, I encourage you. And I have to defer and check on those dates, but otherwise I would offer my spot up to a CRAB board member, because it is very important. And you learn a lot of valuable information that you can bring back to the board. So that's kind of my thought on that. I have to check the dates.
Yeah, you can let us know next month. Perfect. We still have some time on this one because it's in October.
No, Ms. Shad, I already told you, that I can make this.
Excellent.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. If there's nothing else from the board, I'd like to open the floor to public comment since we do have an interested individual. Ms. Oyer, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. How much is all of this? Because the last one, you didn't offer up public comments, so I didn't come up. But how much was that last one going to cost? The one that's in Oklahoma City? You're not throwing out numbers and yet you're inviting everybody in the world to go. So how much was the last one per person?
The registration is about $900 for registration, but we're looking to see if we can just do a 1 day. But the travel expenses will be the airfare and the hotel, depending on the days. Again, the conference hotel, you can get anywhere between $179 a night for the conference hotel. If that's booked up, obviously you can do Airbnb, and usually for staff, we do the cheapest possible, of course. But depending on when you register, the price goes up after a certain deadline, $100 more. So the early bird was $899. It's another 100 or so. I believe September is one of your deadline dates. I have to go and check, but again, it's the travel, the airfare, and the hotel.
Okay, but as a member of the public, I've spoken against these before, like when Mayor Grant tried to go to, the Breakers Hotel for, what was it, $450 for dinner. I really think this is an exceptional amount of money to spend, as everyone talks about how much need there is in the community, and you would spend a minimum $1,100-1,200. I mean, I can see one person going and picking up that award in Oklahoma City, and I really think is it just one award? Is that one award really worth $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, whatever it's going to cost? Because there's food too. I mean, isn't that something that maybe they can just mail you the award if you're only collecting one? That's an exceptionally large amount of money to waste. And then my other thing would be, I'm fine with the one here in Florida because, you know what, talking to people who have done it, they learn so much. It is so valuable. But I think we need to be looking at keeping expenses in check, especially considering, you all complain about how there's no money in the budget, and now you want to find $4 million for PBSO supposedly, and you have all these projects and parks and stuff you want to do, but you're going to throw it away on this, and you're sending everybody and their brother. I think it's an exceptionally good thing to send the crowd board. I can't see sending any elected officials because they're the ones who are going to truly utilize the information. And I think you really need to limit how much you're spending on these things, whether it's the Breakers Hotel or Oklahoma City or Daytona or wherever. You really should be throwing the numbers out to the public, and you should be thinking about how much of our money you're spending. These are our tax dollars. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kerfman, is there anybody online who would like to speak on this item?
There are no hands raised.
All right, public comments on this item is now closed. And if there's no other final questions or comments, I believe this concludes this item. Anything else from my colleagues? None? All right, we're going to proceed to the final item of new business, which is 13E, CRA board discussion and consideration of executive director's annual performance review for 22-23. Board member Kelly, did you want to make a motion on this item?
Yes, I would like to move to table this item.
We have a motion to table 13E. Is there a second to table this?
Second.
We have a second. Board member Turkin, did you want to comment on this?
No,
item?
I was gonna second because I would want to be here in the absence of board member Cruz.
I couldn't agree more. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Council, did you want to add something?
I do, just as a matter of course. Ms. Shutt, are you okay with delaying this discussion as it is a part of your contract?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I will make one comment about this, and I understand from the documents I've seen, and I've said this to Ms. Shutt earlier, the review period is from August to August. We have 3 new board members that were not even here during that time. And so I understand that we're meeting a contractual obligation, but we really can't evaluate her for things that she did before from board members who weren't even here. Of course, we can still do it, but I don't see the logic in that. But I think in the future we should work something out, because I don't know, this defies my common sense, but it's a contractual obligation, so we're going to proceed with it. You know, it just wouldn't make sense if somebody reviewed me, for example, even before they met me. So that makes no sense. But go ahead, Council.
No, I was going to say we have proposed and can consider putting in language that just said sometime before August, so that it's at the board's. There's some flexibility in there to build into the board's schedule for doing these kinds of things. So I think we can look at some language to address that type of concern, given the election schedules.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to table 13E. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. This item is tabled. We're now moving on to 14A, CRA Economic Business and Development Grant Program Update. And before you begin, I want to ask my colleagues, which of these items under 14 would you like to hear from staff? Because if you don't want to hear it, then we don't need to ask for it. Would you like to hear just one or two, all of it? What is your preference?
I would like to hear 14D.
Okay, 14D for sure. Anything else, board members?
Nope. Went to the night market. I drove by the corridor yesterday. It's great. I mean, they're on like the 3rd floor now. So I don't have anything.
I'd just like to hear about the night market. That would be 14B. I know they work so hard, and so I'd like to just get a quick update on that.
Good evening, board. My name is Amanda Meyer. I'm the Business Promotions and Event Coordinator. So on Saturday, July 30th, the Boynton Beach CRA hosted the Boynton Beach Night Market at Citadel Park at 120 East Ocean Avenue in downtown Boynton Beach. The free event with live music with solid brass and also a silent disco and fun games and activities had 53 vendors, and 11 of these vendors were the Boynton Beach CRA businesses. In order to showcase these 11 businesses, we gave them colored tents. That way they were easily identified, as well as glow items to help promote them. So people could come in, and we did promotions for that through the MC as well as signage. We also played a game called What's in the Box. So basically it was a box, and they had an item from one of the Boynton Beach CRA businesses. They stuck their, like a participant stuck their hand inside, and they had to guess what it was. So it was an extra way to get, like, what did they have to offer? And then also the lucky wheel. So that was the other thing. And what else do I have to say? That was pretty much it. We had feedbacks. Every Boynton Beach CRA was wanting to participate in additional events. And the attendee survey, 88% of them were Palm Beach County. So as Turkin mentioned, we had people all over from coming to this event. 51.2% heard through it social media. Any questions?
No, I just wanted to thank you and the entire team for all your hard work. It was a successful event. It was excellent. So thank you again.
Yep. Very good.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing none. It looks like Mr. Tack, did you want to comment on this item or the next item?
Next one.
The next item. All right, let's proceed to the MLK update.
Good evening, board. Tim Tech, Assistant Director in person. This is an update on the MLK Junior project. If you could pull up the pictures, I think we'll just skip to that. For the benefit of time, if you're looking at the east building, you can see that the 3rd floor is constructed. Concrete block has been installed and structural columns are being formed. So you can see you're up to about the 3rd story there. You go to the next one, you're looking north on the south side wall. That's the east building looking from MLK Junior Boulevard and looking south. So you can see it's really coming together there. All right, next one. On the west building, the site's been cleared, concrete footers have been poured, and the block is being installed up to grade. They are currently working around that wood pole there that has Comcast still on it. but it's my understanding that that is not affecting their critical time frame, so they're working the best they can around it. And you're looking at the north building there. The second floor is constructed. Concrete block is being installed and structural columns are being formed for concrete. And you're looking at them getting ready on the second floor there.
Mixed use building, the north building. The ground floor retail is in that building for those.
We're looking pretty good as far as time frame goes, so it's exciting. If you haven't been out there, I suggest at least driving by and looking.
Now, these two small businesses are the ones that are moved. All right. And I guess. Oh, all right. Now, this is exciting, really. So looking forward to it. Are you running into any challenges or any blockages? Is everything going as scheduled?
We haven't heard any issues with materials, but as far as the utility coordination with Comcast getting off that pole so they can top it and get rid of it is starting to impact their critical path. So as staff, I'm reaching out to Comcast and seeing if we can get an update from them and seeing what the holdup is. Usually it's money.
Of course.
Very good, Ted. Thank you, man.
And to that, I think as Ms. Roque was there to say, most of some of their stuff, they've prepaid for they prepaid for the roofing materials. So again, to try to alleviate some of the problems with the supply chain and stuff. So they were able to front some of the money up front to make sure that they have whatever's needed. Yeah.
Excited. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any final comments or questions from my colleagues for the evening? Hearing none, is there anything from staff or council? Any final amendments, additions, anything like that? I just want to reiterate that we did have an addition to the future agenda list, which was the discussion on the CRA plan. Other than that, that was all that I heard. And seeing that there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn for this evening?
So move.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.